we continue. Like I said, we're going to do a little interviewing, find out what's on your mind, things going on.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, Ori Georgetown solicitor Jimmy Richardson is with us. I'm glad I knew you before.
Amen.
Yeah.
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 Or he'd have been in jail by now, right?
No. I cleaned up my act.
You did?
A long time ago. I was an observer a lot of times on those things.
He really was. He was, he just had a good outlet, to pour it out there at KZQ and him and Deke. Y'all got to tell
I like
the
being
story
the
way
observer
you
and telling
wanted
the
it.
story, as if it happened to me. Oh man, I didn't want to get arrested.
No, but I just never got caught.
Somebody was watching.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Well, what happens when one gets arrested? That's a good part. There.
Yeah, really.
I mean, let's go through the process. So I've done like a major crime. I'm not talking a traffic violation, like something major, and I'm arrested and I'm charged. What happens from that point?
So the police can arrest you at what we call probable cause, which is just 51%. They can arrest you and say, hey, it is likely that a crime was committed, and it is more likely than not that it was committed by Jack.
Okay.
So just 51%, it's a real low standard to arrest somebody. Once you are arrested, doesn't necessarily mean you did it. It's that the police have more evidence saying you did it than that someone else did it. Then you will visit J. Reuben Long, or if it's in a municipality, you'll go to that jail, Myrtle Beach, Ana, or whatever, but usually end up at J. Reuben Long. And they will give you the next step is a little thing called an arraignment. They will say, you have been charged with this particular crime, B&E Auto, or whatever it may be. And then a magistrate will set a bond. Now, this gets people all the time. How a person get a bond, that sort of thing. A bond is not to be punishment, even though from a prosecutor's side, I wish that we could let them cool their heels a little bit longer. But our Constitution says that everybody is entitled to a bond and that the judge has to consider two things. Flight risk, are they going to run away and not show back up? And they must consider danger to the community. So if those two standards are low, if I can't say, he doesn't have any land here or he's got 3 or 4 other charges pending, the judge is going to set some sort of a bond. Once a person gets a bond, they will be able to get out of jail with a bondsman. They get out of jail and they will be given 2 court dates to come back. And the first court date, really not a lot's going to happen. We're just going to make sure that the person has an attorney and there's no mental issues that are coming about. And then the second court date we refer to as basically a drop-dead date, which is saying, you've been charged with this crime. We believe that this is a sufficient plea offer. Do you accept the plea offer or do you reject it? And depending on what they say at that point, we either put them on the trial roster or we set them up for a plea.
Well, let's back up on the bond. It's set typically. If you can pay the bond, it's 10%, right?
I wish, and I think that our legislature really has to do something with that. I've always thought of 10%. There's 3 bonds. The first one is a PR bond, which is just a promise. That's basically worthless for getting somebody back into court. The second one that we all think about is a surety bond, and that's where you said maybe it's 10%.
Right, yeah, right.
The truth is you can write, because there are a lot more bondsmen now and they're kind of competing against each other, some of them are writing them at 2%. Yeah.
Wow, that's competition, huh?
Oh, I know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of competition. Now, from our standpoint, we're going to go back to the bondsman at a later date. If the bond is $50,000, I don't care what your contract was with the inmate. All I care about is where's the $50,000 now. You said you would bring him to court. He's not here. And that's called an extreatment of bond. But yes, if it were always 10% like it used to be, the judge would know when he's setting it, I'm really setting this amount for the defendant to pony up. But it could be as low as 2%.
Well,
And
what happens if you okay? So I'm new here.
Mm-hmm.
I just moved here, and I can't pay bond. What happens then? Am I locked up?
yeah, you stay in jail
Okay.
Until you're able to come up with it. But this guy, he's dead and gone now, but he used to be a public defender. And just say on a $5,000 bond, even if they set it at the high amount of 10%, it's $500 by Intermath. Even if at $500, if you don't have enough family members or friends to come up, put their money together and get you $500, you probably need to stay right where you're at, you know? And he was a public defender, but he would always tell them, you know,
Yeah.
you've already made all of these people mad. You just need to sit right here.
Yeah.
So most of them have a bond that can be reached.
Right.
But, you know, you get somebody that can't stay out but a day or two, and then they're locked right back up. And family members and friends do a cost-benefit analysis and says, look, I've already wasted money. You just got rearrested. Just sit there for a while. I've had, I bet a week don't go by that I don't have a mother calling saying, leave them in there. Don't let them bond out. I'm on your side. You know, I don't want them out either, but it's still up to a judge. We can ask the judge not to set a bond, that they've got 3 or 4 charges, but if the judge sets a bond, generally they will be able to make that bond.
Now, if they've never had a charge before, prior to that, and they did something outrageous, like murdered someone or whatever, you're going to go for a pretty high bond, aren't you? Just,
Oh, yeah.
Just, I mean, yeah.
Just because the danger to community
Exactly.
goes way up.
Yeah.
But if it's your first offense and it isn't a big thing, honestly, I said a PR bond is pretty much worthless. It's a promise bond.
Sure.
If it's your first offense, I'm not going to sit there and ask that you got to come up with a big bond. If we can prove it, we'll prove it at a later date. But if your first offense is murder or armed robbery or something really bad, the bond will be higher, and there's very little that I can do for a person at that point. You've involved victims, you've hurt somebody, it's different.
Well, misdemeanors and felonies, they're worlds apart.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I know some guys, even at misdemeanors, I'm like going, man, you got a sheet. You got just pages and pages of nonsense you've done. Why are you even out?
That's over and over.
I know
again.
a lot
Yeah.
of folks like that.
Oh, I know it. I know it.
I'm like,
And
what?
just petty theft, petty
Yeah.
criminal stuff. And for me, that is where you say, look, that person's a danger to himself and to the community just because it's nothing big, but they're constantly in
All the
here.
time,
So just let them sit here a minute.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah. And there's more of them out there. Yeah, there's more of them out there than there is people committing big crimes. And you go, you get another bond, get out and get rearrested again. It wouldn't be uncommon at all for us to have, by the time we are able to do something with, the person has 12, 15 charges. We had a guy the other day that had 50, but now his was bad stuff. He was breaking into houses and ended up with 50-some charges.
So what happens in a case like that? Now, when you go in and look at all the 50 charges, when you bring him up to trial, you want to obviously find the 2 or 3 or 4 that'll stick.
Yeah.
What happens to all the other charges?
Well, generally speaking, what happens, and there was a guy, and it's over and done with now, but his name was Charles Adams. And you living down there at the beach would remember it.
Don't say the neighborhood.
I'm not. But he went into Grand Dunes and
Close by.
Yeah, close by.
and
there.
broke into house after house.
Wow.
Then right across the waterway and broke into a bunch of houses. He had 50 charges. We tried him on 2 cases of burglary, and he was sentenced to 25 years, no parole. He had a little bit of a record, but he had broken into a bunch of stuff, and the judge ain't going to allow you to try him on 50 cases. An interesting side to that is a lot of people will beat up on you and say, well, the stats that court administration keep say you're around 33%. Well, on his case, even though he got 25 years, court administration will report 2 wins, 48 losses. And that's just, tomfoolery and nonsense.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, go ask Charles Adams if he thinks that he
won
won. Yeah. You can go find him at Kirkland. He'll be there until 2045. Go ask him if he feels, and if he's fine with it, I'm fine with it, because it's 25 years. But I honestly, that has always been a problem that court administration puts out. Mm-hmm. We have for over 20 years been keeping up with the same numbers, and our real success rate's about 92%.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It's good.
92%.
Nobody's perfect, but 92% ain't bad. And that takes into account pled guilty to other charges, was convicted of other charges, defendant died, all of those things that would have gone down simply as he pled or was found guilty of 2, and we account for all of those other cases.
Well, we had COVID. You heard about it.
Yeah.
You had it.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for BC powder.
Amen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And Coca-Cola.
But you kept things moving as best you could.
Yeah.
Pretty much led the state.
We do. We lead the state
Okay.
in backlog reduction. We lead the state in all kind of categories. But my friends that are prosecutors across the state, theirs doubled. Their backlog doubled during COVID. We were out for a year, but we kept running. We did virtual court. When they shut down virtual court and wouldn't let people in, we went and deferred sentences, but we went ahead and took care of all of those cases while they were fresh, and we kept on it. Like, they killed the whole office. I got COVID, half the rest of them did, but once you shut down, I'm kind of simple, but if you let a mule stop working, then it's real hard to get the mule back up and going.
Right.
That's a lot of backlog right there.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. And we didn't. We added to our backlog by 726 cases. Now, comparatively speaking, in Lawrence, they went up 5,000 cases, and they don't have near as many as we do.
Yeah.
So theirs doubled. Ours went up just a fraction of a percent. It was a lot of work and a lot of thinking outside of the box to get it all done, but we did it. So I think I've got the greatest team of prosecutors and secretaries and investigators, and they don't get paid hardly anything. I mean, they come into this with $200,000 worth of debt from law school, and we start them at like $60,000,
Yeah, it takes a while to
$63,000.
knock that debt down, doesn't it?
It's crazy, but they do it because they love it, and they are really dedicated, and they come in and work very hard. And with police, you can't pay them what they're worth.
Yeah.
You can't pay firemen enough to run into a building. Prosecutors to a lesser degree, you can't pay them what they're worth, but they do it for the love of what they do, and we're just blessed in Horry and Georgetown to have a great group of secretaries, prosecutors.
Well,
We
tell
got
them all when
100
you
and-
get back, man, that we appreciate them.
Oh yeah,
If
I
we don't have
do
law
all
and
the time.
order, then we can't do other stuff.
Well, the sad thing is that there's a lot of disrespect for the lawyers and the police and this and that. Say if they get put in jail, now you got people on the street saying, "Hey man, don't matter. I could rob a bank, man. It'll get me out in a couple of years. They'll give me 25 years. I'll be out in 2." And then the cops, they go up to them, and they ask them for their ID or whatever, and say, "I don't have to give you anything, man."
Yeah.
Constitution says, "What's your badge number, by the way?" That kind of deal.
Oh,
There's
we've
no
all
respect.
seen that mess on Facebook and all that.
Yeah.
Everybody walking around with a phone.
Right.
I see all kinds of stuff on Facebook.
Let me tell you what I
I saw
told.
something the other day. Go ahead.
But you know him, but my son Joshua, I don't even have to preach to this kid, but I was like, look, now ain't the time to be fussing with no cop.
No.
No.
We ain't learning them on the Constitution. Hand over your license and be happy to do it.
Well, I got to pay some bills and go to a break
Yeah.
here, so I'm going to ask you one more thing. I got you for the whole show. So,
All right.
you running again?
Yeah. I have. I'll have to run in 2022. So.
Well, that's around the corner.
Yeah, it'll get here before you know it. June next year, it'll all be over with. That election cycle will be in June. Now, generally speaking, here in Horry and Georgetown, you don't have Democratic opposition,
Right.
so it's just the primary. But
Who knows what could happen, though?
amen.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yep, running.
All right. Sounds
Good.
good. He's going to be with us the rest of the show.
Oh,
Come on
yeah.
back. We got more River Talk after this.